Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about Sable Ward and why a lot of people not only hate her, but actively and outwardly and vocally hate her to the point where it's getting embarrassing. And I don't really care about this shit. Like, this has happened before in the DBD community. I just don't really care. But something happened, like, with the cosmetic contest, at least when I was talking about it, that kind of annoyed me. So I'll go over what that was in a second. But it did make me want to talk about this because it kind of ticked me off. So first of all, I need to make a blanket statement. If you spend any of your free time, even 1 second, like legitimately hating a fictional character, I think that is absolutely pathetic. Now, there's obviously you can jokingly hate, like, I fucking hate Meg heads and stuff like that. That's all well and good fun. And, a lot of memes have come from that. That's fine. I'm not talking about like the fake hate, where you're sick of seeing, a skin on this character, or you're sick of seeing this character every game, whatever. I'm not talking about that. That's completely fine. That's obviously joking. I'm talking about people who are like legitimately hating the character itself. And I always bring up the argument that, like, she's not real. Devoting your time to hating a fictional character, she's not real. That's pathetic. But I also don't want to piss people off because I feel like that kind of ignores another important point. I don't think being passionate about a fictional anything is bad at all. Like, I'm not trying to imply that. There's a massive, massive difference between supporting something and being a fan of something than actively and outwardly hating a fictional character. Those are very, very different things. One of them spreads positivity. If you go out, outside and yell, "I love Spider-Man" or something, like, no one's going to care. They're going to be like, hell yeah, Spider-Man. Like, you're not causing any, disarray. You're not making the world a worse place. You're not spreading hate or anything like that. That's fine. Even though it's a fictional character, it's still okay to feel passionately about that. It's when you spend your free time hating and spreading hate and vitriol about a fake character, that is when it becomes absolutely ridiculous. I don't care what the character has fakely done. That's so pathetic. You need to seriously stop doing that. There is pretty much zero justification to ever doing that. But even then, even if you do hate a character, like, you could say, like, I hate the Skull Merchant, but I don't hate the Skull Merchant. I hate the gameplay design. It could be an untextured ball for all I care. I don't care what the character is. I care about the gameplay element involved with it. And that's, an important distinction to make there. When you're talking about hating a specific survivor, they're just skins for each other. So you're talking about the character. That's all you're talking about. There's no other thing to discuss there. It's not gameplay involved at all. So, again, I think it's okay to feel passionately about fictional content. That's completely fine. But spreading hate about it is stupid. Like I said, even then, if you hate a character but you don't spread it outwardly, even then that's still okay. Like, you still don't get shit for that. As long as you keep, your scoffs to a personal level, like you see something you don't like and you just go, "Oh, this bitch," or something like that. That's fine too. That's so completely okay. It only becomes a problem when you spread it outwards. And an example of how that's the case is the cosmetic contest. This is what I'm talking about and why I wanted to talk about this. So there was a cosmetic contest, a lot of really cool designs there, and one of the designs was Sable. And immediately, people started hating on her because she's popular, and they didn't like that it was taking up the potential slot of someone else that could have been there. Granted, this was community voted, so this was just what people wanted. It's just nothing more than what the actual audience of the game wanted. But the actual cosmetic on the Sable was really, really good. It was super well made. It was like pretty much professional concept art. It was really well done. But people hate her so much that they just started saying bullshit like it's just AI or something. And maybe it is. I don't know. It looked fine. All the fingers were there. Everything was great. The borders were perfectly crystal clear. It seemed good to me. But the point is, with zero proof, people just started saying it's just AI. They have no proof of anything, but just because they hate the character so much, they just decided that they're just going to start shitting on the character. But the problem is, because you're bringing this hate outwards, it's no longer just sitting within you. It's now affecting real people. Because not only are you insulting the character, which whatever, she can't hear you, it's fine. But now the artist behind it is now getting personally affected by it. And now you've crossed the boundary into keeping something internal you don't like, into actively spreading hate onto a real person, which makes you a piece of shit. That is something you should never, ever do. And the fact that artists are now being given shit for pushing Sable here because she's popular is ridiculous. The argument essentially boils down to people hate popular survivors. That's pretty much it. And Sable is popular, therefore we hate Sable. And I tried digging into it more than that because I figured that can't just be that's really it. That's the main reason. So I did something no mortal man should do, and I dug into the bowels of Twitter, and I found a lot of people, a surprising amount of people, that are insinuating that people hate Sable because of a subtle racism angle from behavior. Whether or not behavior is being intentionally racist, Sable is white, and Sable gets more cosmetics than other people. Therefore, there is an unfairness there, and whether or not behavior realizes what they're doing, it is founded by racism. This is the argument that they're making, which I think is incredibly unfair. I think behavior is an extremely inclusive, very, very good company for diversity and all that stuff. They are among the best. I have to imagine people that are complaining about this have never played another game online before, because behavior is literally at the top of diversity in terms of, games I've played in the past. So I think they're really good at that. So when people make these claims, I kind of get annoyed because I think they're, they kind of suck in balancing games, stuff like that. But for the most part, they seem like they're good people, and they seem like they really do try to include everybody. And I think they're really good at that. So when they personally attack them on that level, if we're talking about balancing, I'll punch him with you. But if we're talking about that stuff, I think that's really unfair. And so I dug deeper. Again, bad idea on Twitter. But it seems like the argument there is that Sable just has more cosmetics than the other survivors, and she's white, and you compare her to, minority characters, they have less. But I actually just checked. Like, there's this really cool website that shows you all of the cosmetics for every character. And if you look at Sable's, like, this is all of Sable's cosmetics. Now, assuming this is up to date. I'm assuming it is because Trevor is here. Yeah, this seems up to date. So here are all Sable's cosmetics. And you go to the last survivor that came out that was an original character. Obviously, we talk about original characters because licensed characters are limited in their cosmetics. It's Gabriel, and he has more. And if we go again to Hanato, he's got more. If we go to Delita, he has more. If you go to, like, fucking Hattie has more now. And Hattie was like, the reject for behavior. They pretty much ignored her entirely. That was actually pretty obvious. So she doesn't have more cosmetics than really like any original character. But the argument then shifted to, okay, fine, but she released with more cosmetics, which gave her like an unfair boost at the start, which already kind of weakens the argument a little bit, in my opinion. So now the argument is, well, because at this moment in time, she had, one or two more cosmetics than a previous character who was not white or something. Therefore, behavior is now being influenced by racism or something. I feel like that starts becoming a lot weaker. And, if we look at just, again, the most recent survivor before Sable, who is not white, still has more. But if we look at just solely the release amount, it never drastically varies that much. Like, I would completely understand if we had, like, multiple Hattie situations, because I will agree, Hattie is basically the nurse of the cosmetic discussion. She's such an outlier that we just don't even talk about her because we're just like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, they just completely neglected her, and that was abundantly clear. If we had multiple situations like that, I would think there's a bit more fairness to the argument, even though I think it's mostly just business-based, who's going to buy more. But it would be a lot more fair if we had multiple scenarios that were that, unfair. But if you really look at the history, there's not that much disparity. Like, Sable will release with like one or two more cosmetics, and there might be a person of color or something like that releases with like one less. But then there's also a couple of examples of, minorities releasing with more than a recent white survivor or something like that. There's not really a super clear pattern. And the only times you can see something being a bit higher or a bit lower, it's usually off by like one or two cosmetics. It's not really that big of an amount to jump the claim directly to like racism or something like that. I think that takes that so much farther. Again, if we did have Hattie situations, like if we had Sable that has 50 cosmetics and, Claudette has 2 or something, then I'd be like, like that would be a little weird. But there's not really that much big disparity. I think it's far more important to look at over time the cosmetics total that the survivors actually have, because I think that's just the fairest way to do it, because behavior doesn't, like, they release collections. That's how they release new cosmetics. They release them in bursts. And so they might have their year planned out already. It's not like they make a cosmetic and ship it in one day. They just have their year planned out. So, Sable might get 3 here, and then she'll get 0, 0, 0, 0 or something like that. And if she gets 0 for the rest, Adam or whatever getting 57 on that particular time, but because he released with less, like, you see the point I'm making here, that you should look at the full picture overall over time. And I can understand how, like, for a couple of months you might think, wow, this sucks. I only have a couple for this new Survivor I really like. But I still think it's way more fair overall to look at the whole picture and over time. But again, with all of this, if they're actually trying to make it a racism angle or something like that, we can still just look at the original Sable, who was Feng Min. She was hated for pretty much the exact same reason. She was popular, and people believe that she was taking away from other cosmetics, but you can't use the racism card on her because she's not fucking white. She's Asian. So it's not really a racism-related thing. It's just really popularity. That's the main draw to all of this, and that's honestly the main draw that drives behavior's decisions. Now, for releasing more cosmetics, it would make sense. They're going to release more cosmetics for the more popular survivors. But there's an argument on the other side, to be completely fair, about releasing new survivors with less skins, because you don't have the data to know whether or not she's going to be liked. If you after 3 months see, hey, 8 billion people play Sable, they're going to go, cha-ching, we're going to make Sable cosmetics. Makes sense. But if you release a character with less than another one, then there's no data there. So you're just sort of like, then I understand that far more. But again, the disparity is so low that it's like a rounding error most of the time. If you actually look at the history of the cosmetics, from what I can see, again, unless I'm missing some obvious data or this is not an accurate website or something, it doesn't really vary that much. It's all pretty similar. But again, all this doesn't matter because we had this exact same scenario happen with Feng Min. She was the original. There's literally a Twitch emote called Feng Min, which is just the Buzz Lightyear and Toy Story thing because there's millions of them. They're all just copies of each other. We're sick of it. That is the exact same scenario, but there's obviously no racism in play because she's not white. So that's why I think it's disingenuous to try to attribute that to racism, because behavior is really good with this stuff. Again, in my opinion, they're really, really good with this stuff. The best in terms of diversity and inclusivity I've ever seen in any game that I've ever played. They're really good with it. So when someone tries to make a claim like that, I do feel the need to defend them a little bit and show examples of how that I don't believe that to be true. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. That's completely fine. As long as you're not spreading hate to other people, I don't care what you believe. You can believe behavior is pure racism. That's why they only give white people skins, even though it's not what happens. That's fine. You can believe whatever you want. That's okay. As long as you're not spreading hate to people like this in cosmetic contests, and you're not spreading hate to real people, real artists and stuff like that, then I don't care. Do whatever you want. That's fine. But don't spread that to real people. That's, I think, when it becomes... it crosses into something you can just internalize and like be like, this is stupid. But then you're actually just causing hate on people that just don't deserve it. The artists don't deserve to get shit on for this. If you want to blame like actual root behavior because you truly believe that is a real issue, then that's fine. That's okay. They're the evil company. They only care about money. They're going to focus on whatever. Believe whatever you want. That's fine. But don't like attack the fucking artists involved. Like, the entire reason I made this video is because people are attacking the Sable cosmetic and the artist behind it. And that just annoyed me. So I felt I need to talk about it. So that is, I think, all I needed to say about this particular subject. Really what it boils down to is just popularity and taking away from cosmetics and other characters, because if they devote more resources to one character, then obviously other characters, there's not an infinite amount of artists on their team. So that is the perception, at least. That is why people are hating it. I think it's all stupid. I think if you hate a fictional character, you need to go outside or something that is utterly ridiculous, and it really serves no beneficial purpose to humanity whatsoever. Again, loving fictional characters, that's fine. That's just spreading positivity. There's nothing wrong with that as long as it doesn't go into toxic positivity and attacking people who don't love your thing, then it's completely fine. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.